Death Holler is a horror cast created by two true horror fans to bring to the table your favorite horror films. Topics include, but are not limited to, historical horror, gore, the occult, and terror. Listener discretion is advised.
If you go, and I saw this on a blog that I was reading about the 25th anniversary of this movie. If you go from about the 29-minute mark to about an hour and 9 minutes, Alan Pangborn is not in the movie at all. At all. Like, it's all scenes of Buster, Nettie, Wilma Jerzik, Leland Gaunt. That's all you get for like that amount of time, from like 29 minutes into an hour and 9 minutes. And then Alan Pangborn comes back. It's hard to really take him as the true hero of the movie when he's not even in a good portion of it. And I think that's another failing of the movie. They cut out their hero for most of it.
Yeah, I want to agree with you. However, on my end, how I viewed it was that his scenes were powerful enough that I didn't even notice. That's the flip side. And I'm not saying that I disagree with you. You're absolutely right. He should have been in a lot more scenes, but man, for me to not even notice is pretty, well, that's not saying a lot because I often miss a lot of details in films. That's just me, but it didn't feel like he was missing.
There was a lot more in the book that's why I was going to go into that first, is because Alan Pangborn had this whole history in the book that he had just lost his wife and his son. And there's a lot of the grief that he's dealing with that, and it makes him a richer character because of it. And it also informs his relationship with Polly Chalmers. That's the reason they connected, is because she was kind of his sounding board. She was kind of the person that was there for him to kind of walk him back from the ledge, as it were, whenever he was in his worst depression and grief over the loss of his family, because he kept blaming himself. And she basically was the one person that's like, how are you to blame for this? Basically what it amounted to was his wife had like a brain tumor or something like that, and it made her basically commit suicide and take her son in the process. And Alan couldn't believe that he didn't notice the signs, being the detective that he is, and he is good at what he does. And, and basically, Polly was one that, gave him like I don't know if it's a physical, but it was at least a metaphorical slap in the face. It's like, there's no way, you were too close to it, first of all. Secondly, everybody involved, the doctor included, didn't catch this. So how were you as a layperson ever going to notice she had this? And, and it's like, she's the one, and that's how, and that's what kind of, and so it gives a better history behind them and kind of informs them better. And the one thing that she's got to her detriment as a character is the fact that she's got this whole history of where she lost her own son, as a single mother out in California, because she moved out there from Maine for a while, and she will not let Alan in on that. That is her secret. That's whenever in the movie Leland is talking about he loves a prideful woman, that's the same line he uses in the book, because she holds that pride. Even Alan, who's her true love, she won't even let in on that secret. And that's the one, she feels so guilty about it. He bared his soul to her, but she won't do the same for him. And Gaunt works that magic, or works that problem against the two of them, because to get Alan out of he does get Alan out of the picture for a while and sends him to a completely different direction. But that's by having Polly break up with Alan, or in a sense. But it's a lot more meaningful in the book, because she thinks that he has somehow found out about her son in the book and has went behind her back and investigated it, because she gets a letter dropped off by, I think the priest is the one that does it in the book in that one. That's at her house, and it's it's addressed to Alan, and it's basically like it's the California board of whatever that's over like child welfare, and it's like we're sorry, Mr. Pangborn, but we can't open that file up because it's not something you're entitled to under your privileges as sheriff. And it's like to her that it's more powerful the fact that she would break up with him at that point, because it's like an invasion of the one thing that she holds dear. Where in the movie, it's just like she randomly finds some money on a ship and she automatically assumes that he's like in bed with Buster Keaton. I mean,
Well, she's supposed to be under his sexual seduction, so there's that. Again, also to be inferred.
yeah, it's inferred, and I don't know. It plays like a CW drama in the movie. It's just like one minute they're true loves, and they propose, or he proposes to her. Next minute, she sees the money there because Leland Gaunt sends her to the boat, and she's like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. You're a horrible person. It's like, couldn't you have at least asked him about the money before you did that? I mean, in the book, she doesn't really talk to him much either about it, but that's because her pride won't let her talk to. I mean, like she when she gets so furious at the fact he goes behind her, he breaks that trust, and trust being broken to me is more of a reason why she wouldn't talk to him than in the movie just randomly seeing money laying out there. I don't buy that, as far as a reason for her to blow up the way she did. And trivia, a little bit of trivia on that. Her life in California and Pangborn's children, or child and wife being lost, were actually in this movie originally. In the very first draft of the movie, whenever it was first written, about 2 directors before this, that was in there, and it was one of the things they had to cut out. So it kind of sucks that they cut out. The one thing, and they dropped Pangborn for so long, and then they also cut out like the one thing that kind of makes him a stronger hero, in my opinion, the fact that he's kind of overcome that grief just a tiny bit, and that that's kind of where he's operating from. So
apparently that was a detail that they didn't think would help this film much. I would like to derail slightly, not entirely, but did you get the sense that certain characters represented the 7 deadly sins?
I'm sure they were there. I didn't focus on it that much. I'm trying to think. I mean, greed's amongst all of them. I mean, Stephen King.
Oh, big time.
As a bit of trivia, Stephen King actually wrote this as like a critique of 80s, era America, the Reaganomics type thing. So, I mean, that's what it's critique of. But other than greed, I don't really, I guess, well, if you're going to go down that route, Wilma Jerzik's definitely wrath. I mean, she's the epitome of wrath. I don't know who Sloth would be necessarily.
I was thinking it would be... why can't I remember right now? The guy with the Letterman jacket.
Oh, Hugh Priest. Well, yeah, he kind of would be, because he's kind of just he's kind of a bum. He doesn't do anything, but he does his job during the day, and he goes and he drinks it up at the bar at night. So yeah, he could be Sloth. That would be.
And he was kind of described as a lazy worker that didn't amount to much. But then again, that was also by Buster, who obviously had ulterior motives.
They describe him in the book that way too, and that's another. And that he's if Ace Merrill's one side of Stephen King's addiction, Hugh Priest is the other side, because Hugh Priest represents his drunk side. And throughout the whole, and then that's one of the things that's kind of heartbreaking a little bit about Hugh Priest. He's mostly a piece of shit in the novel too. Less so than in the movie. The movie, he has no redeeming factors, but in the book, whenever he sees his needful thing, which in the book is a foxtail, one of those little things they used to do in the 50s. It was like a little tchotchke they attached to their antenna that like whipped behind while they were driving. You can see it in the movie for a split second whenever he has his needful thing scene, and and he's in the car with his Letterman jacket on. You can see the foxtail, but whenever he first touches the foxtail, it gives him hope that maybe the shit piece of person that he is now can be fixed, that maybe he can start going to AA, maybe he can start getting his life together, maybe he don't have to be the 50-year-old drunk that's like living in a shack, and doing like, menial work during the day, and but then the bad part about the needful things are you get obsessive about them to the point that you're afraid that somebody's going to steal them from you at all points in time. And so he gets so obsessive about the foxtail that he can't leave his shack. And so he never goes to the AA meeting, so he never gets better. And that's kind of the bad part about his trajectory, is that the needful thing offers him the hope, and then it pulls it back because he's so obsessed with it. He can't be parted from it long enough to go do the things that he needs to do to get his life back on track.
Man, that would have been really good in the movie. For envy, I would say that would be the 2 priests, the priest and the bishop.
Yeah, they would be. You can also say that Preacher Willie Rose or whatever, he is pride, I think, personified too, because he is so prideful in his his congregation and his belief that he is the arbiter of God's word, that he thinks the Catholics are like these heathens or whatever, and they're the same religion, but he's got it right. He's got the pride part of it. You never get that from the Catholic priest. He's just, he thinks that Willie Rose is just a blowhard idiot. But I mean, he never casts down on the Baptists because of it necessarily. I mean, he makes fun of them because of Willie, but he never, but Willie is just this prideful, like I'm the, Word of God personified. So he's a little bit of pride too in that sense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every character has the one thing about them that stands out and also has a touch of something else. So I agree with you.
But I guess Polly Chalmers is the pride in the movie because they even go so far as to mention that, he has that line, oh, I love a woman with her, that in her pride or whatever. So she's the prideful one.
That's true. I mean, she didn't emit pride, maybe from the book.
She didn't.
Yeah, I would say in the movie that she represented lust. She wasn't lustful herself, but she was the beautiful woman in town, and Leland Gaunt was lusting over the beautiful woman in town.
Well, that's true. Yeah, in the movie, she was more that role and in the book, her pride was only in the sense that she was prideful with her secrets. Like she was so prideful, she couldn't even let her, lover, her true love, in on the secret. To hell with everybody else in town. They didn't need to know, and I agree with her on that. But I mean, she could have let Alan in on it, and she was too prideful to do that. But yeah, she was definitely lust in that sense, and they didn't in the book. She never had that like strange relationship with Leland Gaunt that way. It was like she trusted Leland almost like a doctor and a patient in the book. It was like he told her that she would be cured. She was. Alan came back and he was the, the husband, the boyfriend that's always like, I don't think this doctor's got your best interest at heart. I think he's a quack. And she, and then she's like, how dare you? He's treated me when nobody else has, So it was more of that relationship in the book versus the weird, creepy, cringy relationship that they kind of had going on.
Yeah. Okay. Gluttony is a hard one because we had a few instances of multiple characters that were over drinkers. That could technically be gluttony, but gluttony wasn't something that immediately stood out to me in this film.
Gluttony is kind of an addiction. I guess you could say Buster was gluttony.
I was thinking that too, and I wasn't quite sure if that counted because consuming can be defined in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that. It's kind of a weird one. There's nobody else that really fits that part. And then what are the other ones besides that? I'm drawing a blank as to the other ones.
Okay, so we've gone over pride. You went over that one. Envy, we discussed that one. Lust, anger, which would be wrath, greed, and sloth. So we basically got them covered. I just wasn't sure about gluttony because I wasn't sure that Buster represented gluttony. I mean, technically, he could also represent greed.
Yeah, but for him, it's not really greed. He's not about the money. He is addicted, at least in the book, and they don't really come across and sell this so well in the movie. He is addicted to everything about the gambling other than the money. He loves the thrill of it. He loves the... He loves the even just the energy that he feels in the crowd whenever the races are going on. That's what he derives his pleasure from. It's not the money itself. He just loves going to just feeling the whole energy because it's like he's part of a group. Like he's one of those people that never felt like he really connected to anybody, but when he's at the racetrack, he is part of everybody else. Like they're all the same, like they're all together. They're all there for one thing. He's addicted to that more than he is the actual money that comes from the betting.
Well, I think that covers the 7 deadly sins.
The things I was going to say, the things that I hate the most about the movie versus the book is that since they didn't connect them to any of the other Castle Rock stories, which they really couldn't because the movie version of Stand By Me is set in Castle Rock, Oregon versus Castle Rock, Maine for some weird reason. They lose a lot by not having those connections in there. I mean, it is really cool in the book where Polly Chalmers is trying to set Ace Merrill up, doing a prank on Ace Merrill, which she doesn't realize at the time is actually directing Ace right toward her love, Alan Pangborn. She doesn't realize that's who she's setting up in the process. But her needful thing has to be paid for by a prank, and she Ace Merrill's a piece of shit anyway, so who cares if, she pranks him. But when she goes to do his, she has to go dig up something at the Camber farm. And when she's there and she goes to the barn to get the shovel out to dig the hole to find the item that Pop Merrill left or whatever that's really junk, but Ace don't know this, the ghost of Cujo is there in the barn, and it actually chases her away at the end of the scene.
Ooh.
Like, she sees these two red eyes, and here's the growl deep in there, and it's like this dark shape of a dog that's in the barn. So that is a really cool scene, and it really ties back, and it really adds something having that in there. Having Ace Merrill in general in the movie or in the book is great. Like I said, he is a much better sidekick to Gaunt than Buster. Buster's kind of the wild card, the one that's, I want to equate it to the Bible. I mean, you got the devil, and then you got maybe the Antichrist, which is Merrill, and then you've got man, which is the third six or whatever of the three sixes. And man, is represented by Buster. I mean, he's completely flawed. He's petty. He's suicidal at times. He still has feelings. He really does care about Myrtle, even though he killed her. I mean, that's the weird thing about him. That scene in the movie, it's kind of played more. It's way overacted, I think, by Walsh, where he's like, "But I love Myrtle." It's like in the book, you get more of a, because he's ready to eat a bullet at that point. He's like, "What have I done?" And the only reason he doesn't eat the bullet then is because Gaunt talks to him telepathically and eases him back off the ledge. He's like, "Nope, you got one more thing you need to do. Then you can kill yourself. I don't care what you do at that point, but you got one more thing." He's like, because he keeps feeding him this kind of like conspiracy bullshit about it's you versus them. And I'm with you. I know about them, meaning that Pangborn, the town council, everybody else in the town is against Buster Keaton and waiting for him to, have his downfall. And that, Gaunt's his co-conspirator. He knows all about it. So that's how he keeps getting, Buster Keaton back in his good graces. But I mean, it's one of those things where he's more of a tragic figure in the book in that sense. So it sucks not having Merrill there, because Ace Merrill is truly the evil piece of shit that only cares about himself, that they they try to make Buster into as an amalgamation in the movie, but it don't really work, I don't feel like. Because Ace is real calm and collected. He just cares about, he's got a bad drug deal that went wrong. He owes a bunch of people money. As long as he can get that shit paid off, he's good to go. And he don't care who dies in the process. He's in it to get what's his and get out of there. And that's why he's such a good bad guy. And he threatened to kill the kids in Stand By Me. I don't know if you remember that in the movie, but he had a switchblade on one of them, was going to, kill them, basically. The main character, I think, Will Wheaton's character, just because they found the body before he did, and he, and he wanted to, claim credit for it. So that's the kind of person we're talking about with Ace Merrill.
I find that I often mix up the movies Stand By Me and Sometimes They Come Back.
It's very close, because it's
okay. I'm glad I'm not crazy, and I'm glad you confirmed that for me, because I thought I was losing my fucking mind. I'm like, okay, this movie reminds me of this movie. I think I've seen Stand By Me. I think I need a refresher, because I remember Sometimes They Come Back.
Sometimes They Come Back is the version of Stand By Me that if it was more supernatural based, because Stand By Me is more of a slice of life type thing. In my mind, it's more like a version of the Sandlot, because it even has the whole thing where they go to a junkyard and I think they get chased by a dog or something. So, I mean, it's got like a little bit of Sandlot type slice of life stuff with it, but it's got like the evil 50s greaser bad guys. And that's Sometimes They Come Back is those evil bad guys if they would have died, and now they're back from hell and they're still going on their rampage. So it's kind of Sometimes They Come Back is kind of like the supernatural version of that. So you're right in thinking that, anyways.
Nice.
The other connection that I think's better in the book is the fact, they keep mentioning Alan Pangborn's shit that he went on in the dark half, and I think that really informs his character better, especially with regards to why he is the one person in town that's like the foil to Leland Gaunt, is because he's already dealt with this shit before, like this weird supernatural bullshit. He's the one that's dealt with it, so I think that informs his character a little bit better and makes it more believable. And the book the fact that the book can spend so much time, which it probably does a little too much of this, but it goes through and delineates a lot of the different fuse boxes that get set up. And you really, when the town starts literally, everybody's at their throats and killing each other left and right toward the end of it, why, because you saw, Myrna, which is Brian Russ's mom's best friend. You've seen her go and pull the prank on Hugh Priest where she stabbed his tires. But then you also know the fact that whenever her needful thing was being used and Brian Russ's mom's needful thing, Leland Gaunt did this nice little thing where the two, he knew the two of them wouldn't talk to each other, so they wouldn't know that one of them stole because both of them wanted the picture to set it up, but Myrna got it because she came there first, and then Cora Rusk couldn't get the picture, so she got the glasses for Elvis. But
which she actually wore in the film.
Yeah, you can see her several scenes in the film. It don't discuss it, and that's actually one of the cut scenes from the 4-hour movie is more about her and her Elvis obsession. And believe it or not, that actress is also the wife of Ed Harris, I believe. So, but anyways, so she's wearing, when the two of them are using their needful things keep progressing in their like vivid image of like Elvis or whatever, to the point where I think it's Myrna's starts out where he's on stage, and then she goes from being on stage with him to being in his car with him, and then on the car to the plane, and they're traveling toward Graceland. Cora's or Cora Rusk starts out in Graceland, and she keeps going through Graceland and having her sexual relations with Elvis in every room in the place. But the funny thing is that Leland Gaunt has them connect, because whenever Myrna actually finally lands in her needful thing at Graceland, the two of them see each other through their needful things, and they know that the one stole the picture when, at that point. And that's why they start going after each other. It's not because they were necessarily set up by anybody else. It's because their needful things actually connected to each other and was like, oh shit, you bitch, you stole my man, that sort of thing. But it goes through and it sets up a lot of that stuff, so why, you have a better sense of why, and it's not just a few scenes of people randomly having feuds and now they're all killing each other. And the things we've already mentioned that's cool from the book that we don't get to see is how the people hoard their needful things, how they won't let anybody else see it, how and I think Leland Gaunt even has this great quote in the book. It's like the more you pay for the higher the price you pay for something, the more you value it. So whenever they do, like for Brian's instance, because he knows that those two women killed each other because of his prank, he will not let that card out of his hands because he's got blood on his hands now. And if that card ever disappears, what was the point? People are dead because he got the card. He can't get rid of the card now. If he does, people died for no reason. So they're kind of caught in this loop. They won't let anybody see the thing, and then they get so obsessed with it that they can't function without it. And I don't feel like that's in the movie at all. It's really lost.
It was not played well in the film at all. It, for the most part, just totally got thrown under the rug.
And the fact that, like we said, that it's junk to somebody else, like I said, Alan Pangborn can see through it immediately. Even looking through the outside window when he's looking at the stuff, everything in the window the store window that shows the items that he looks at, he's like, why in the hell would anybody buy this? I mean, he never gets to enter the store until the end of the movie because of the fact that Leland Gaunt won't let him in there. But when he's looking, he's like, this is all junk. This guy's a con man. And that's, kind of plays into...
I feel like that would have taken such little effort to show in the film. Like, one view it's this, the other view is this. I mean, I don't make films for a living, but come on.
I agree with you. It wouldn't have taken much at all for him to show that. And then... now, you said in the movie, and this is the difference, Alan Pangborn doesn't need anything, so it's like Leland Gaunt has no power over him. It's not that way in the book. There is one thing that he has that Pangborn needs, and it's set up by his, but since they had to cut it out of the movie, there's no point in showing it. The one time that he enters the Leland Gaunt's place, everything's been stripped of it except one thing. There's a little small TV there with a little VCR connected to it. Of course, they're not plugged in, and Pangborn knows this because he's already accepted the fact that Leland Gaunt's like some supernatural creature at that point. But the tape supposedly has a video image of how his wife and his son died. And that's the one thing that he spent the entire his whole life since they died trying to figure out, and he knows he shouldn't. Everything inside of him screams that he shouldn't put that tape in there, but he has to. And when he puts it in there, he sees Ace Merrill being the one that caused them to go off the road. And at that point, Gaunt has done what he's going to do with Merrill, so he just wants the two of them to kill each other at that point. And he's already had Chalmers set, Merrill against Pangborn, so that's his way of getting Pangborn to set. And as soon as he watches this, his mind instantly, and that's another part of the supernatural element, Pangborn, even though he knows that Gaunt's, evil and it's all bullshit, he becomes completely obsessed with the fact that Merrill was the one that killed his family, and he will not, and he's going to even leave the town at that point. The town is at its most critical point. Everybody's dying. There's, he has just made it back from visiting Brian Rusk's brother in the movie, or that's in the hospital, because in the book, Brian Rusk actually kills himself. That they wouldn't put that in the movie because you can't have a kid killing herself. I mean, that's, just...
Oh, yeah, the bullet made it, but he didn't die.
Yeah, so he's just got back from another city entirely. The town's completely on the edge of collapse, and the one moment when he could step up and do something, he becomes completely obsessed with finding Meryl, and he knows that Meryl's in another town over, so he's getting ready to leave. And that's the point where Polly actually comes back. She has destroyed the spider we talked about. She's finally broken her, view of Gaunt and the spell that he had over her. And she's the one that talks him back off the ledge one more time. She's like, it takes her, touch, like grabbing his hand, like making him look at her. And it's like, he sells lies. She has to convince him that. And then it's like he finally is able to swim back from that obsession. But like he's literally, because of what he saw, like his mind is completely taken over by his rage, and he's getting ready to leave the town in the book at that point. Which I'm going to just go into the ending of the book because it would have been so much better if they'd filmed this, because that's right at the ending. So you got that scene with, Pangborn's finally being drawn back from the ledge of getting ready to leave. He gets extremely pissed off. He happens to have at this time, he's got this little joke can of a thing, a little joke that is because his son, because in the book, Alan Pangborn's one of those people that does just like, cheap magician tricks all the time, but he's really good at them. Like he can palm a quarter and, like make it disappear, and he can make like streamers come out of his wrist or whatever. And the kids, he does that for the local kids to kind of cheer them up. And that's actually how he gets Brian Rusk's brother, Sean or whatever, to talk to him, is that he does a little trick for him, and he tries that for Brian earlier in the book, but Brian doesn't respond because Brian's completely off. He's in depression mode. He's getting ready to kill himself, so he doesn't respond to it. But he's got this one little thing that he never threw away from his son, the last thing that his son actually bought, and he still feels guilty about it because whenever his son tried buying it, he threw a fit. Pangborn did. And his wife was the one that told him, it's like, he's a kid, let him have it. It's not that big of a deal. But it's one of those little cans of peanuts or something that whenever you open it up, one of those little cheap, like snakes, paper snakes pops out of. So he's got this in his hand the entire time, and it's one of the things that helps bring him back from, in addition to Polly.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, Norris Ridgwick has been shot by Ace Merrill, and the bullets that they have at this point are from that other world that I was talking about. So whenever they hit you, even if they don't kill you, you will die anyways because this like horrible infection spreads throughout your body and you die from it. So Norris has been hit by this. He's not been hit critically, but he's dying from the infection that's festering in him. He gets one of the other cops to drive him because and this is after, I got us back up. He's the only other person in the book that can see through Gaunt's shit because he nearly hangs himself after he was the one that slashed. It wasn't. I don't think it. No, he was the one that slashed Hugh Priest's tires, and it was Myrna that sliced the tires of the other guy, Beaufort or whatever that Priest was going against. So, and since Hugh Priest went into town and killed Beaufort and then killed him, and then got killed in the process, or tried to kill Beaufort. Norris Ridgwick feels really guilty, and so he tries to commit suicide at one point. And while he's trying to hang himself, he's looking at this little rod and reel that's like that looks like the one that his father used to have when they went fishing. And he, in the middle of trying to hang himself, it flashes and it changes, and he sees it for what it is. And it's not like this glow, this brand new shiny one that looks just like what his dad had. It's like this piece of junk that's barely, held together. And he realizes that Gaunt's lied to everybody. So that's what, brings him back from the edge, and that's why he decides to fight Gaunt. So he's on his. So he knows that Alan has to be the one that's going to do anything. But he's going to be there to help if he can. And so he gets pulled up in a police cruiser, and he's just gotten just enough energy to get in the window, and he uses the top of the police cruiser to prop his hands up so he can hold the pistol handy in case he needs to use it. And he's right in the line of sight between Pangborn and Polly, and then that's when Ace Merrill shows up, and he pulls Polly out of the car because that Pangborn's in at the time. Because that's where she's pulled him back from, like, leaving. He's in his car, he's getting ready to leave town, and she's convinced him otherwise. But she gets yanked back from the window, the passenger side window, pulled back from it, and Ace Merrill's got her there, and he's got a switchblade to her neck, and he's going to kill her. And then Gaunt comes out finally, and he finally addresses Pangborn for the first time, and he basically, is gloating over what he's done. He's got a briefcase there full of souls. It's like puffing, and there's this light coming out of it, and Pangborn And all this kind of happens at the same time. Pangborn happens to realize that he's got this growing sensation that can of peanuts is not just like a silly little trick that if he uses it this one time that it's actually got real power to it. So he opens it up and like this actual radiant bright white from some other dimension comes out and actually damages Leland Gaunt. In the process, Polly I think bites Ace Merrill's hands long enough for him to get drop her for a second. Ridgwick takes his shot and takes Merrill out so that, with the one little bit of energy he's got left. And then Pangborn, with the power that he feels coursing through him, which is actually more connected to Stephen King's The Stand, which is another connection between all of them, tells basically Leland Gaunt that he's through in the town and to be gone. And it's almost like that, when priests, tell a demon to be gone out of a body. It's like got such force to it that Gaunt can't respond to it other than the fact that he has to leave. Like there's too much, there's another authority behind it that's making him leave through Pangborn. And then basically you see Leland Gaunt leave town. He changes, he gets in his car and he starts to drive off, and his car changes to this old horse and buggy type setup, like a carriage, and he's this little imp creature that's on the buckboard, they call it, the part where you're with the reins, and it changes several times. It's like a snake oil salesman's
carriage?
Traveling carriage. It looks like something from the black, the times during the Black Death, and and they basically watch as he goes into the sky and disappears or whatever to go to his next place. Don't kill him, but they force him to leave the town. And that just it's such a cool ending that, and the movie, you compare it to the movie, and it's literally just Alan Pangborn giving a speech, Jeff Winger out of Community, and everybody stops what they're doing. And they're like, that's a good idea. Let's stop killing each other. And then Gaunt's claps a few times and says, good job. And then he leaves. That's literally the ending we get in the movie.
Yeah. We're on a show where we're talking about this, but I don't even want to talk about it right now. It made me look at Leland Gaunt as a different entity entirely. And again, we've discussed, what is he? And I'm like, well, he's not the devil. And the reason I've come to that conclusion personally is because I don't believe the devil would have time for the petty ass bullshit that we got in this movie. Personally, maybe he's some demon of mischief, or if you Google a demon of mischief, for some reason Asmodeus comes up, and I thought he was a demon of lust, which I guess in the book would make sense, because I guess he took the dreams and bent them or used them in a naughty way, maybe to kind of change what was going to happen or what's going on.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
I guess, but that never made sense to me. I've never viewed Asmodeus as a demon of mischief, but okay, let's just go with that. Any demon of mischief is basically what I got when I think of Leland Gaunt. And they didn't play up his powers well enough. I mean, for all we know, he could be working for the devil, and the devil's like, okay, well, this person is going to want this. He provided the needful thing, and then Leland Gaunt was the one that executed everything else that followed.
Well,
that's my thoughts.
And I think it loses something, like I said, not having Ace Merrill in there, but it also loses something in the movie because you just have Alan Pangborn being by his lonesome, facing off against Gaunt and just giving that speech. And in the book, it's got the Holy Trinity, kind of a thing where you got Pangborn, who's, basically, the father, he's got the power that's channeled through him. You've got Polly, who's kind of the Holy Spirit, who kind of, gives him the, the ability to overcome the devil's, charms, in other words. And then you got Ridgwick, who's kind of like the son who comes in and, kind of helps, after the fact, or, right toward the end after he's died, basically, because he was in the process of hanging himself. So it's kind of like, the Jesus, crucifix type thing. He comes back and he's the one that helps save the moment enough for Alan to do what he needs to do. So I feel like it even loses that in the process of, just the fact that, the way they filmed it and everything else. But I agree with you. I mean, Gaunt, to me, is not the devil as portrayed in the movie. I mean, people can think that, but he's, more just like this mischievous, I don't know, demonic entity of some kind, whatever you want to call him, Asmodeus or whatever. So,
do you have any trivia you would like to add before we roll into ratings?
Let's see. I was just going to say a few little quick trivia things. I already said it was a longer 4-hour cut called More Needful Things. It only exists as like an extra on the German DVD at this point, so that's the only place you can watch it. It's the only film made by Castle Rock Entertainment that's set in Castle Rock, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I was like, what? Did they do Castle Rock movies? Apparently not.
When the director took Max von Sydow to the side and gave him directions on how to play Gaunt, somebody cheekily remarked, that's something you don't see every day, Moses' son telling Jesus how to play the devil.
Oh, shit.
Let's see. We are talking about Brian Rusk was not killed in the movie because the studio won't allow it. They actually had like 3 different directors. The first director was Lawrence Cohen, who made the Carrie movie. He wanted to be a faithful rendition of the novel, but he couldn't get it to condense at all because of the amount of characters, and so he gave up on it. And then they went to W.D. Richter, who's actually executive producer on the movie, if you see that. He tried his stab at it, didn't work, as obviously. He asked him why couldn't they make a miniseries. They poo-pooed that, and so he kept it as a single film, cutting everything out of it, just like I said, Ace Merrill, Polly Chalmers, Family Life, all that stuff. And that gave us the movie that we got, unfortunately. And but he was so fed up with it at that point, he passed it on, and then that's when they got Fraser Heston to finish it out. Stephen King actually wanted Michael Rooker to play Pangborn because, like I said, The Dark Half came out that very same year that this one released. So he wanted to keep the continuity between it was the same character, but the studio said, no, Michael Rooker's not well enough known. We want a big name, so that's why they went with Ed Harris. Sydow, when asked to play Gaunt, read the script and loved the character instantly, and that's the reason he agreed to do the movie. It only grossed $15 million domestically and was considered a critical and commercial flop of the biggest type. So if you look at its ratings on Rotten Tomato, it's pretty bad. And something that was in the novel that I wish they could have hinted at in the movie that I thought was a neat twist. Leland Gaunt reveals that the needful things are not the things that he sells in his store, but the people who buy them. And it's a really poetic twist because he says that the people who are buying the junk that he's selling have some kind of horrible void in their soul or in their personalities, and they're the needful things. And so the title of the movie is not about the items, but about the people. I thought that was a cool little twist.
Okay, I like that.
But that's basically all I got. I mean, so we can get into the ratings. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
Okay, well, let me clarify real quick, because you said that they went through 3 directors before they settled. Well, I'm going to go with settled on Fraser, who could put it together. But there was a script. I'm assuming there was a script before there was a director. And doesn't the director kind of have to follow the script? I mean, I know they can kind of take the script in their own direction. I don't want to sound stupid, but I mean,
they have the right to refuse to direct a certain script unless it's rewritten, but that's what I'm saying. Richter got it secondly, and he was the one that actually made most of the cuts to it, to get it down, because the studio insisted it be a one-film 2-hour length movie. And when he got through making the cuts, he was just so disgusted with it. He's like, well, I'll continue on as executive producer since I put all these cuts to it, but he said somebody else is going to make it because I don't feel like this is worth filming at this point.
I mean, he's listed as the writer of this movie. He just didn't make it into the director category. I could have searched it incorrectly.
I think Fraser only added the one line about Jesus to the movie. That's literally his only addition to it, as far as like the script itself is what I read as far as the trivia goes.
Okay, so moving forward to the reviews, because my mind is pretty much just boggled at this point. You wanted me to go first because I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I started off optimistic about this film because little child Llareyna would have probably rated this movie about a 4.5, because as a child, the things we're supposed to infer with our imagination are a lot more creative, because as children, we're a lot more creative when it comes to our imagination. And in my mind, watching the film, I can envision how all these items could be so powerful or have some power or control over these people. That was terrifying, and that was scary to child Llareyna, because it was a supernatural thing that she didn't want to think was possible. So that's child Llareyna's experience. Now, older Llareyna has been knocked down not only by watching the movie again, but also knowing details about the book, which sucks because normally book details don't usually affect how I view a film. Really, I don't usually allow that because I try to keep the two separated. You know, church and state, that's how it should be. Keep them separated.
Well, they're two different mediums. You can get by with more details in a novel, so
Exactly.
you have to give a movie its fair shake when it comes to the fact that they've got to cut things out.
But so many good things were cut out. I feel like they didn't keep anything good, so that's where we're at with the film. My daughter ruined this for me, even though she gave the film a higher rating than I did. Because she's also younger and probably is seeing the same things I saw when I was her age. And then there's listening to you banter, and I swear my score just kept dropping and dropping and dropping. I'm going to... Realistically, I'm somewhere between a 1.5 and a 2. I'm going to go with 1.5 because that's what my heart tells me. Because I've just been defeated at this point. Okay, I'm deflated. I don't have a lot of good to say about the film. I mean, the only thing that stands out to me is the doggy death scene with... can't even speak, which normally upsets me. And we rewound, we paused, we rewatched it again. It's the only horror element in this film.
It's funny you say that because here's where I come from in this movie. I didn't watch it as a kid. I didn't watch this movie until I was a teenager in high school, if I remember right. I didn't care for it then. It kind of bounced off of me. I'm like, there's other Stephen King movies that I like better. I thought it was kind of middling at that point. Watched it years later because my father-in-law really loved this movie, and I just got through reading all of the books in that Castle Rock trilogy, and so I was really down on it then, and it was probably the worst movie I'd ever seen in my life. And I've came back from then trying to give it its due, like we just talked about. You know, you can't put everything that's in the novel. So my opinion has actually went up, believe it or not. That's not saying a whole lot. I personally give this movie, and it actually dropped since I wrote the notes for the show here. I think the movie's closer to a 1.5, but I'm going to give it a 2, and that's just because I like Ed Harris and what he tried doing in the movie, and that was another thing I don't think I got to. Him and Bonnie Bedelia are playing playing in a totally different movie than Max von Sydow and J.T. Walsh, because they're playing it fairly straight, they're playing it fairly dramatic, and then you got Sydow and Walsh playing this cartoony like version of evil. So I like what Ed Harris did. I liked what J.T. Walsh tried to do with Buster. I think with a better director, he could have actually taken the goofy parts of Buster from the book and actually married them to the more tragic parts. But the director wasn't up for that, and probably the script wasn't either. And I feel like Gaunt, I liked what he did as far as like his attitude and just his how he went about the character. I just feel like the plot didn't sufficiently support him in that role. So I'm going to give. I mean, it's a 1.5 to me, but I'm going to give it a 2 just for those actors. But I mean, that's pity points, really. I mean, at that point.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because I just remembered this as a child being such a great film, and I was so excited for us to review this. And now I don't really feel like we even touched on the devil at all.
If you want a better version of this, in my opinion, and I hate saying this, watch the Rick and Morty episode. That's
oh my
about,
God.
Where the devil moves into town and he sets up this little cursed curio segment. And of course, Rick finds a way to uncurse everything and put it back in the devil's face. It's a lot better. It's only going to run you about 30 minutes, and you'll save a lot of time and effort.
Yes, and will probably be thoroughly enjoyed versus what you would get from watching this film. It's 2 hours of your life that you will not get back. I mean, it feels like my soul was consumed. So Leland Gaunt won.
Do read the novels, though. I would recommend starting, if nothing else, with The Dark Half. But if you want to back up and start even going with The Dead Zone, you're not going to be, you're going to have a good time, because those were some of Stephen King's best stories, in my opinion. So I
have not read The Dead Zone, and I have not read The Dark Half. At least I don't think I've read The Dark Half. You can read these books individually. I've only read Needful Things. But why wouldn't you want to read all of the others? The other 2 sound like they'd be a wonderful addition. Why wouldn't you want those details?
But other than that, all I'm going to say is that next film we discuss, I mean, we'll probably have a news episode between now and then, but the next episode is going to be The Prophecy. Speaking of the Dead Zone, Christopher Walken. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, and I really just want to see Christopher Walken portray Gabriel and kind of see. And I think Viggo Mortensen's the devil in this one, so it's going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually excited to watch this one. Well, I mean, especially after watching this one.
It's really campy, but it's campy in a good way. I mean, I hope I don't eat my words on that. It's been probably 15, 20 years since I've seen the film, but I mean, my initial thoughts on The Prophecy are a lot more positive than what they were about Needful Things. So,
alrighty.
Anything to plug before we head out here?
Well, let's see where to start. We have a website, deathholler.com. You can go there. You can subscribe to our show. You can subscribe to our email. Any blogs that we might put up is all going to be there. We can be found on the following platforms to listen to: Spotify, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Podcast, iTunes, and recently Amazon has invited us to join their network. So we are now on Amazon as well. And we also have an Instagram page up where you can find basically any personal photos, because we do put a few of those up, not too much, as well as updates on our show, things like that. We have a lot of followers, so you should head on over there and join us, as well as our Facebook page. Now, we have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. Both of them, just search Death Holler in Facebook. You should be able to find us. We are pretty much more active on the group, so that's where I would recommend, but please give our page a like. It helps our show out.
Well, I'd say with that, peace be with you.
And with your spirit. If you enjoyed this episode of Death Holler, the review of Needful Things, please look forward to our next episode where we review The Prophecy. Death Holler is brought to you by Los Diablos Blancos Network, with your host, the Reverend Dr. Death and Llareyna. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share. We can be found on most podcast apps. We'll catch you next time, and don't forget to bring your death certificate.